Let's start with the morning keynote from the IoT evangelist at Eclipse, Benjamin Cabé.
Good morning. Well, it's really great to be in. It's my first time in Italy since 20 years, I think, and first time in Florence. It's beautiful so far. So today it's going to be a not so technical introduction to the IoT theme for today with a presentation. I mean, we are in Florence, so we're going to try to see if there is a well, I think there are some interesting things. So as you said, I'm Benjamin. I work at Eclipse. We do lots of things around IoT, so I will introduce some of the stuff that we do. And I will start with a quote from that guy that I think you know. Creativity is just connecting things. Well, if you think about it, yeah, just connecting things. We do connect people already, right? We have the internet, we have all these platforms like Flickr, we have blogs, we have social networks. We are pretty good at connecting people, and that way we kind of are creative and we innovate, right? Like if you think about Flickr, you're taking pictures, right? We have so many kids that turn into actual photographers because they are able to share their, well, sometimes stupid selfies, but sometimes it's also real actual pictures. And connecting people is definitely helping with creativity, but how about connecting things and what does it mean? Well, I'm sure you know some of the use cases of what is called the Internet of Things, right? It's, if we take a city, you have several, you have actually many use cases of what it means to connect things. If you think about, do you guys know smart grid? Smart grid is the ability for electricity producers to actually optimize the distribution of electricity according to how people actually consume the electricity. Thanks to smart power meters that people have in their houses, the electricity company is able to optimize the distribution of electricity. Delivery trucks, what if FedEx or UPS would be able to deliver a package depending on where you actually are on a specific day, rather than delivering it at your house while you might not be there, right? Connected police cars maybe, or everything related to healthcare, the ability to improve patient health by being able to remotely diagnose what they have and stuff like that. And this is only in the context of a city, right? If you think about what connecting things can enable for agriculture, for science, for people in general, well, you have so many use cases. However, and of course, this is less and less true, especially because there are open source initiatives, and what's happening for open source is slowly starting to spread in the domain of IoT, but still there is still a lot of fragmentation in the way connected solutions are being built. Of course, it's not, it's been 10 years or 15 years already since the first home automation solution and connected home solutions have started appearing, but they are usually based on proprietary protocols. Proprietary, if you want to extend the solution, well, maybe you can't, or maybe if you can, you have to use a proprietary protocol, proprietary SDK, APIs that are not always well documented, and the data, you don't really know where the data is going to end up, right? You have the ability to monitor the temperature of your house, but you need to use a solution from a third-party vendor, and this is bringing lots of complexity also, because you have, when you build a connected solution, you have to develop at some point embedded software for connecting the thermostat or the power meter. You have to develop a communicating solution, so you have to be good at some point at networking and at protocols. We have several talks about protocols today. And there's, I mean, it's true for many of the solutions, well, especially around home automation, but not limited to home automation, this lock-in, right, based on closed APIs and closed cloud solutions, it's very difficult for people to actually innovate and be creative in the domain of connecting machines because of these various reasons. So, as I said, we are in Florence today, and I thought that it would be interesting to think about what happened during the first Renaissance and what it means for the era we live in today with this era of connected machines. And there are actually lots of similarities between what happened starting in the 14th and 15th century and what we see today with the Internet of Things. If you think about materials, during Renaissance, the artists, the painters, they were actually hacking the way they were doing their painting. They were hacking colors, for example. They were adding specific ingredients to make colors more beautiful or to have a different rendering of the skin tones, adding crushed marble or glass into the paint so as it's actually more beautiful. This is actually from a book of the 16th century, and you see that for doing a black color, they were using pomegranate skin for doing the black, and for reproducing the color of grain, well, they suggest that you should use human urine for doing the color of grain, and for pretty yellow, you can use egg whites. So that's pretty interesting to see that they were hacking materials just like today. If you want to build an actual physical and communicating object, you have also the ability to hack materials, except that you have also the whole internet to help you doing that. You have this website, it's called Open Materials. You go to openmaterials.org and you can learn about how to experiment and use conductive ink or magnetic ink or all kinds of materials. These guys are documenting how you can take existing materials and turn them into something more useful, and they document all their findings and all the instructions for actually sourcing the components if you want to use these materials. So it's actually pretty interesting. And as I said, we have all the internet ecosystem. So there's also this. And I think Cristiano, this rings a bell, right? This website is called Thingiverse. Who knows about Thingiverse in the room? Oh, just a few. So Thingiverse, it's basically GitHub for objects. It's a website where you can share blueprints and designs of physical objects. Like this greenhouse, it's made of plexiglass, right? You can laser cut the greenhouse out of plexiglass, and the design is actually open source under an open source hardware license. You can take this design, go to a local fab lab or a 3D printing lab, and you can get this object. And just like with open source, if you want to improve the design, well, you're free to do so. You can comment, you can fork, you can improve, and then document what you do with it, and that's pretty interesting. So yeah, we definitely are hacking materials today, just like they did a few hundred years ago. How about communication? Well, one of the inventions that revolutionized the communication is definitely the movable type that Gutenberg reinvented in the 15th century. And well, it basically allowed people to communicate much more efficiently, in addition to allow them to also be creative in the way they were actually designing books, right? They were able to typeset and to be even more creative in the way they were laying out the books. And if you think about today, well, how do we address the communication in our century? Well, as I said already, we definitely have open source communities and all the platforms for actually collaborating, and social networks and Twitters for being able to exchange and to innovate, and Stack Overflow and whatnot for doing our job as software developers or as hackers, basically. And if you think about the Internet of Things, well, we will have several presentations today about the protocols that enable the Internet of Things. And with protocol like MQTT or CoAP, you basically, just like with movable type, you have this framework for doing your books? Well, with MQTT and Co-op, you have the movable type for making your objects talk. You have this framework for this messaging framework between your objects, and it's up to you to enable communication between objects. You want your thermostat to send a temperature value to the cloud, so as you can change the temperature in your house and stuff like that. So that's yeah, that's pretty interesting. All these open protocols that we have today for tinkering and hacking the Internet of Things. How about the tools? Well, of course, during the Renaissance, these guys had invented new tools, especially in the domain of architecture, for being able to build all these beautiful buildings that we have, especially in Florence. So lots of inventions during the Renaissance. The crane was basically invented during the Renaissance. This is how they relocated the obelisk in Vatican, thanks to the lifting tower. Of course, the astrolabe for navigation was quite helpful, I think, for some people. The parachute, etc., etc. So they invented their own tools because they needed them to be more creative, right? Just like we do today with the tools we use, especially in the domain of the Internet of Things. We have, as I said earlier, fab labs and hacker spaces where you have, this is basically in several cities in the world, you have the ability usually for a small fee, a small monthly fee, you can go in this workshop and you have, not only do you have geeks and experts that can help you build this crazy idea you have in mind, but you also have all the tools, the soldering irons and the CNCs for cutting the pieces of your objects. And this is really becoming more and more popular. And 3D printing, of course, right? You guys know about 3D printing. I'm sure you've heard it's becoming more and more popular. So you have this crazy idea of an object you want to build, to prototype. You want to build your own Nest thermostat. Well, you go to Thingiverse, maybe you download some parts, existing parts, you improve them, you go print them on a 3D printer, either in a fab lab or you actually can buy 3D printers now. So we definitely are reinventing the tools as well. And in terms of actual programming and implementation of the connected objects, well, for the actual electronics parts, there's the Arduino. Well, the Arduino actually was also invented in Italy, funny enough, and we see more and more people using JavaScript because it's so easy to use JavaScript on. You can also run JavaScript actually on embedded systems, and that way you can, just like you would develop a small web UI, you can develop a small communicating object, right? And last but not least, there was also one thing that I find interesting, just like there were patrons, right? And during Renaissance, the Medici and the Borgias, they were basically sponsoring the development of new buildings, of new paintings, of new sculptures, because they thought it would be great for the society, right? Maybe for them also, for their brand, their image, but it was also great for the society at large, right? So I'm not quite sure, maybe if it were for the Ninja Turtles, right? But we wouldn't know about Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael if it went for these guys who actually funded the work of these guys. And in 2014, we have something actually similar. You probably know about the Raspberry Pi, right? This 30-ish euros Linux board, small Linux board. That is actually, maybe you don't know that, but behind Raspberry Pi is actually a pretty large company, right? That created a foundation to promote the use of Raspberry Pi, but they basically, that way I think they can democratize the use of the Raspberry Pi, and maybe eventually they will sell more chips, right? Because people will maybe prototype on the Raspberry Pi and eventually they will use their solutions, right? Same for Intel. Intel, they created a board that is somehow similar to the Arduino. It's called the Galileo, and they started end of last year to spread this board into universities, and they basically donated 50,000 boards to universities just because they thought it would help students be more creative and build new solutions based on top of this very platform. It's actually an open source and open hardware platform, but by injecting some of these boards into the universities and stuff, they are definitely helping the Internet of Things and making this ecosystem even more creative. And there are actually many more who do the same. ARM is doing the same with Embed. Texas Instruments, they have a couple of similar platforms as well. So that's what's happening now, right? And you may wonder what the heck is the relationship with Eclipse then. Well, it turns out that we have an initiative that we started 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, to actually help provide some open building blocks for doing Internet of Things. And I won't go into technical details. As I said, we have several guys today who are committers on Eclipse projects like Paho, Ponte, California, Wakayama, lots of projects that actually deal with connecting things. But today, I want to use a demo that is actually very much in line with what I said so far. And this is a demo that's using a robot, so hopefully it's going to be cool, because robots are cool, right? And so this robot, I think you guys all see it, right? It's called Rapiro. It's been available for a couple of weeks now, and it's actually open hardware. What I described earlier, the ability for people to download basically the source code of objects, just like you would download the source code of for software. Well, this is true with Rapiro. If you go to Thingiverse, I think it's actually on the homepage on Thingiverse these days, you can download the parts of the robots. If you want to print the robot yourself and use a different material, different length for the ears, whatever, you can do that. So this is an open hardware platform. In this open hardware platform, we are running an Eclipse technology called Eclipse Orion. How do you guys know Eclipse Orion? Okay, so I may describe what is Eclipse Orion then. It's basically a platform, an IDE in the cloud. Instead of running your IDE on your desktop, you can run the IDE pretty much from anywhere in the world, and you open your IDE in your browser. So I am actually running Orion on the robot itself. There is a Raspberry Pi inside the robot, and I will, in just a minute, run Eclipse Orion in the robot and basically edit my code and script, program my robot right from my browser, thanks to Eclipse Orion. And last but not least, we're going to use MQTT to actually connect the robot. So basically what I did for this demo is exactly what I described. I took some existing pieces, like an open hardware robot that was existing, for which all the design, all the instructions regarding how the robot actually works were open, and I took that and I thought, okay, let's improve the existing robot, which was basically a robot that you could not really control from the internet. Let's turn this robot into an Internet of Things device. So because it was an open platform, I could install Eclipse Orion, and I can start doing a small application, so as I could actually connect the robot using MQTT. So enough talking, let's switch to the demo. So the robot is actually battery powered. It's running as I said, there's a Raspberry Pi. So as you can run software inside the robot. So the software I'm going to run is Orion. And now that hopefully the robot has started, I'm going to open my web browser. Sorry. Let's change the way I'm switching screens. All right, so this is my web browser. And maybe the robot is not ready yet. All right, so this is what I opened in my web browser is a URL corresponding to the IP address of my robot. I'm connected to the robot and I can open an IDE, right? So here the robot is next to me, but the robot could actually be anywhere in the world. As long as there is an internet connection, I can actually open a full-blown IDE and start writing code. And so the code I'm actually writing, you can see that it's well, it's actually pretty similar to what you would oh yeah, okay, UI is responsive here. So this is my source code, right? And it's a pretty simple application that I have. We won't go into many details, but it's basically a few, 50, not even 50 lines of code to basically make the robot connected using MQTT. So you will learn way more about MQTT in the next session. But basically, the idea is that I use the open source MQTT protocol to connect the robot to the internet, and that way I'm able, using MQTT, to send instructions to the robot to tell, hey, Mr. Robot, please wave hands, or hey, Mr. Robot, please take a picture. So this is what this application here is doing. It's written in Node.js, and thanks to Orion, I can actually edit my code. I can have everything you would expect from an IDE, content assist, and whatnot. And I also have the ability to open a shell. Yeah, I have unsaved changes on my program, but I don't really care. And now what I want to do is start my application, right? And I have a shell. I have auto-completion in the shell. From wherever I am in the world, I can program and access the shell of my thing, which today is a robot. Let's start my application. All right, serial port opened. It means that we are actually ready to do the next part of the demo, which is using a web UI that I could probably also use from my smartphone or my iPad. And this web UI is using MQTT over WebSockets for being able to send instructions to the robot. So if I press the button here, I'm going to send an MQTT message all the way up to an MQTT broker. And the MQTT broker's role is to dispatch the MQTT message to the things that are actually interested in this very specific message. So in my case, the message is wave hands. Hello, Mr. Rapiro, please stop waving hands. Sending another command, we stop waving hands. And what is pretty cool with MQTT, just like with movable type, is that you have this framework for communicating. And you can do whatever you want inside the framework. And you can also use MQTT for sending not only very simple messages like, please, Mr. Robot, wave hands, but I can also send a message that would be, please, Mr. Robot, please take a picture. And in response, the robot will send a picture over MQTT, right? Inside the MQTT message is going to be an actual picture. So I just press the take picture button, and now we have taken a picture, and this was all done using open source technologies, especially Eclipse open source technologies, because we used MQTT. We used an MQTT broker that's also hosted at eclipse.org, and we used Eclipse Orion, and that's pretty cool, right? So let's wave hands again. And I think this is actually what I had for you today. Oops. Oops. So that's it for the demo, and just like, I started with a quote, I want to end with a quote as well. This is, I think the second renaissance is happening, right? And I mean, even FYI, the term second renaissance is not mine. If you go to secondrenaissance.org, you will learn a lot about this second renaissance. It's some great folks in Germany. Some guy called Hans-Jürgen Kugler. He's done a keynote actually at EclipseCon a couple times. And so this is happening. And if you want to be involved, well, you have all the tools. I described some of them. You have Thingiverse, you have Eclipse, you have Orion, you have MQTT, you have lots of cool building blocks for doing for building the Internet of Things, right? So if you don't want to, I mean, you have an opportunity to be the first. So yeah, don't be the last, because as this guy said, the times they are changing, right? So enjoy your day. You will have lots of great presentations around IoT and M2M. Feel free to come talk to me if you want to learn more about the behind the scenes of the demo. You can find me on Twitter. My email is pretty easy as well. So let's stay in touch and have a great day.